when you do research, there is no possible conflict of interest. I tell you, you have a choice. What do you like to do? To get old or to die? Ah, get old.
Get old.
And you have to be ready, up on your toes, to answer them.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Angel Gonzales from the Getz Pharma Philippines, Medical Affairs. This is for the Science Capsule project brought to you by Getz Pharma. And we are broadcasting live here in the Philippines. And we have here with me, I'm very honored to have a very esteemed speaker and a well-known established cardiologist. Allow me to introduce him. He is a clinical associate professor of the University of the Philippines, College of Medicine, and a cardiologist and internist at the UPPGH or the Philippine General Hospital and the Philippine Heart Center. He is the past president of the Philippine College of Physicians and Philippine Heart Association, Philippine Society of Hypertension, and Philippine Lipid and Atherosclerosis Society or the PLAS. Let me introduce to you Dr. Dante Morales.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon,
Hi.
Doctor. How are you?
Very nice to be here, to be invited here, huh?
Yes, I'm honored to be with you, to be sharing the screen with you. How's your practice right now as cardiology in the Philippines right now?
Well, in my senior years, of course, it's I'm trying to pass this on to my son, who's also a cardiologist.
Oh, yeah.
So, there are still patients who stick by me, and gradually I'm passing them on to my son. No, it's about time.
But you have a lot. You have a very robust CV. It took me like days to read it, and we're actually very fascinated by the researches that you did. No, because right now, as we can see, we've noticed that in this newer generation, research is not very much explored by this generation. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we would like to encourage them also to get into research.
Yeah, it's good you mentioned that, but my observation is, it's still going even strong or even stronger because we have had evidence-based medicine introduced in the country decades ago, and we have a lot of people who are interested in clinical epidemiology, which sets the stage for them to do researches and to interpret researches. People think that anybody can just interpret researches and the statistics, but really it takes some training and knowledge about this, and this is what clinical epidemiologists do. And I'm very happy, really, in the university I'm connected with. Many of them take up clinical epidemiology. Not only that, when we do research, many of them are expert research panelists who are the ones going into research and to find out the data, etc., which will be the basis for all the guidelines that are being developed. In fact, we're developing now for universal healthcare in the Philippines.
Oh, yes, because it's coming.
Right, and we're doing the periodic health examination. What are the tests you're going to do or tell the primary physicians on the first visit of people, Filipinos, adults or children, who are asymptomatic and apparently normal? What tests do you do? Of course, if they have already symptoms, then you know already where to go, what tests to do, and then, of course, how to treat them. But when they don't have any symptoms or they look normal, what tests do you do? And this will be based mainly on age, on gender, and family history and other personal and social history, i.e. smoking and the rest.
Yes. Okay. That's good. That's good to know because I think it also entails a lot of passion to become a researcher, right? And with that, Doctor, I'm interested because of based on your CV, among all those researches that you have made, which is the one that you consider as the groundbreaking for you?
Well, let me start with the very first researches I did, and that was, my goodness, way back in 1970 or so, when I was a cardiac fellow in Boston City Hospital. I was fortunate to be with the Harvard Medical Service, and my boss was an authority on cardiomyopathy,
Okay.
And so what I did really was to inject trypanosoma, into mice, and then sacrifice their hearts to find out the effect of myocarditis and the compliance of the ventricle, the right ventricle, which is the one attacked really in myocarditis. So that was what I did. And I was happy that that was presented in a major American Heart Association meeting, and the hospital spent for me, and that was really a very nice experience. So that started me really on research. That was animal experimental research,
Yes.
and then that was followed by I think it was valvular study. People with mitral stenosis. What do you do with them? Do you operate or do you just crack the valve open? And that's of course surgical also. And so we reviewed about 1,000, the first 1,000 mitral valvuloplasty patients in Boston City Hospital with a very notable expert again in rheumatic heart disease, Lawrence Ellis. I remember him. So that was nice. That was also presented in an American Heart Association convention, which was really good. And I think that was what really started me into really having the interest, the passion, the curiosity in
Yes.
research, no? And of course, it's really very important because it's applicable in medical practice. No?
Yes, because my second question is related to that. What prompted you to become a trialist or a clinical
Well,
researcher?
in Boston City Hospital, I was a clinical fellow. At the same time, not only clinical fellow but also fellow in research. It was Thorndike Memorial Laboratory, a well-known laboratory then. So we had to do researches. So para bang, or should I say, we really had to do it, as part of the training and the
Yes.
performance as a fellow, so that was what I did because my boss was a cardiomyopathy expert, no. So that was the reason why.
So it wasn't just because you have to comply, but you had the passion from the start.
From the start, I had to comply, but then I got interested, and with that, that set me forth into really, doing researches from that time on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot, you're even part of the Odyssey, and there's quite a lot. The On Target, Transcend, Heal, Rely, and so much actually. And you have very recent, you have 5 recent, and I believe there's one that's just published last year. Was it
The
last
last
year?
one was Tips 3. It's a nice study because it combines. It's a polypill study. So we know that people certain age will really develop hypertension,
Yes.
a cholesterol problem, and will be prone to coronary heart disease, cardiovascular disease, stroke, etc., etc. So this studied about 5 medicines: an ACE inhibitor, a beta blocker, a statin, a diuretic, and also study on aspirin and vitamin D. So it was a double-blind study, and one group was assigned aspirin, the other one no aspirin, and then the other group also vitamin D versus no vitamin D. So very important because this will make the medications cheap and affordable.
Yes.
And that's really a problem in the Philippines, in our country, because our medicines are out of pocket. So it comes from the pocket
the
of the
patients.
individual. Of course, there is I mean, what you call this, insurance company that helps from the government, but it doesn't help very much.
Not
So
everyone have the access to that.
exactly. Well, now any senior can have that PhilHealth. Plus, you have to pay a certain amount to be able to be enrolled. No, but it's a help. But that's only a small portion of what expenses the patients would incur when they take medications.
TIPS is international, right? How many countries are involved in this?
Several. Philippines, Canada, India, South America. But I think I'm proud to say that I think our contribution was the biggest one from the Philippines.
Philippines.
Right?
Yeah, I think we're one of the hubs for clinical trials also,
Oh
right?
yes, they've established a good reputation. In fact, we did several studies, international studies, and we were congratulated for having one of the best compliance and reporting and all that. Even better than some Europeans and American research centers.
And our IRBs are very strict.
Oh yes, IRBs really, and each hospital has a very good IRB,
Yes.
research board that looks into the ethical practice of research.
Exactly. And then another question, Dr. No, in doing trials, there are a lot of challenges, of course. Apart from the approvals from IRB, the requirements, what do you think are the most difficult, and what would it take for a researcher to overcome all these trials?
Well, first of all, you're sort of approached by a CRO, research organization, and the research organization sort of gets a tip from the sponsors
Yes.
about who will be the PI, principal investigator for the country, and then also suggestions on who of the doctors in different hospitals will be a good principal investigator for that site, no, for the hospital. And of course, this is based on your track record performance in the past. So that's it. Once you get that, of course, there is already the funding, and there is the organization, there is the checking and the tracking. And of course, that's important because they're the ones that sort of tells you, oh, we're okay, we're up to date, we're behind in this data, you're lacking in these reports, etc., etc. But once that's established, then the challenges will be number one, recruitment. But before you even get appointed as a investigator, they already try to find out how many patients you have with that kind of illness, so that the medication can be applied too. So the next one is really recruitment, and then followed up by follow up and compliance by the patients to the medication, as well as the schedule of follow ups in the clinic.
I don't know if I have to ask this, but with your private patients, are they willing to, join clinical trials also?
Yes. I was thinking before that the ones interested will be patients who probably don't have much.
Yes.
But that's not true, because I've had patients included here who are really, in the upper echelon of society. And they're interested because, for me and even for doctors, when you do a research, it's not based on something you read in the books or in the journals.
Exactly.
It is something that you're the one contributing and doing, So you're the one introducing this to be published in books or journals first, and then in books, to guide the medical practice, both to provide good quality as well as ethical and affordable, safe service to our patients.
Yes. Oh, with those challenges that you've mentioned, what would you advise our younger generation of doctors so that they can, like, let's say, timeline, or how should they prepare to make a research, not just for compliance of their training?
I'm very happy to say that I've been a past president of several organizations, and one of the push that we have really is towards research. And as presidents and members of the board, our main thrust has been to do research,
Okay.
funding for research, and we've been doing that. Not only that, before you are acknowledged or even become a diplomate, or later on a fellow of these organizations, then you have to be doing research. And then at the same time, during annual conventions, we have a research contest. And this makes the people really interested. First, it's a requirement. And then it makes them interested in doing research and being chosen to present and winning. There are good prizes, and winning the researches. It's not only good for the individual, but also for the organization or the hospital or the center that you represent. No? So that's good, because in my hospital, I can mention the name,
Yes, yes, yes.
Manila Doctors Hospital, even Makati Medical Center, researchers, we've been, vying with top hospitals, government hospitals, training hospitals like UPPGH, Philippine General Hospital, as well as Philippine Heart Center and other hospitals, in garnering awards, no, That's good because a private hospital, you're really not as good as a training university hospital. But we're vying with those, which is good. Well, our secret is because of the fact that the trainers and the movers in those university hospitals are also in our hospital. So we're really well guided, in research.
Yes. Actually, for Getz Pharma, we also have a project. I actually did it in Makati Med, and we're doing research workshops. Not the basic ones, but the higher level form of research workshops. So we would be willing to partner if they want to publish their researches. So that's why we are also doing the science capsule. Okay.
Well, that's good. That will help because that will
Yeah.
instill more interest, and research is very important because in taking care of patients, you have to be up to date and well guided. But what are the best practices that you should be doing
Yes.
based on evidences? Not, oh, my experience is after having seen so many patients, they did well, etc. You don't know because when you see the patients, you're not able to follow them up. You see them and then you give them medication, you try to follow them up. But then, not all of them come back. So you don't know what will happen to them. A research, you're able to follow them up. Usually we have about 90, 95 to 100% follow up, which is good. Nobody's lost to follow up, hopefully.
So in your practice, you can really say that based on the medicine that you're going to give, it should be backed up by research. Right?
Definitely, you cannot just be going by experts' opinion.
Yes.
The best one still is randomized controlled double-blind study, and the more the better, and of course meta-analysis and all that.
Yes. Other than the clinical trials that you have done, you also did clinical registries. What are other registries that you can advise doing for our country or probably in Asia?
Well, we're doing registry on heart failure. It's still ongoing. That's good.
Yeah.
Before I was involved in registry for dyslipidemia. In fact, one of our researches has been on guidelines in hypercholesterolemia way back. And we established that we did it very well, based on the evidences again,
Yeah.
and not mindful of the pharma industry,
Yes, exactly.
So we just did it based on evidences, on researches, etc. That was good, no. I didn't do many registries. I remember heart failure, cholesterol, etc. That's it. A lot of my research have been really clinical. About, well, also description of patients, etc., diagnostic tests, etc., etc.
The one that you're talking about, sir, is the GCHF registry, Global Congestive Heart Failure.
Right.
That's the one.
Yes.
Still ongoing.
It's still ongoing, right?
Okay. That's good to know, no? And then I have other questions. Few more questions, if you would allow me.
Of course.
Okay, if you would go back to in time, do you believe that scientific discoveries before were just merely serendipity?
No, I don't think so. Because, well, it can happen sometimes, but first you think of what is needed, what questions are there that have to be answered, of which not much evidence is present. So that's when you choose the research project or research topic that you would like to study. But it can happen that as you're doing a study, then you're finding out there are other advantages or uses for that. A wonder drug is the SGLT2 inhibitor. It's a new one. That started really with the ingredient fluorescein from the bark of an apple, or an apple tree, I should say. And they found out when they gave this to dogs that they were losing weight, and there was sugar in the urine. So then they applied it to individuals and found out that it's really good not only for diabetes, but good for heart failure, good for kidney disease, good for so many other things. That's why I call it a wonder drug. When the first study was presented in Paris about SGLT2 for heart failure. So, but then, like, of course, beta blocker. Beta blocker was a no-no for heart failure before. But then it was found out that it's a good one of the mainstays in the management of heart failure.
Yes.
So that's of course ACE inhibitor, ARBs. All of those are also very important for diuretic. When they're congested in patients with heart failure. So that one, there are things that are really discovered as you're doing some research. No, so if you say that it's just serendipity, just so happened by chance, yeah, it can happen. But I think that there's really a guide, a direction in the choice of the research that you'd like to do.
Yes, okay. Coming from the pandemic, or we're still quite in the pandemic, what would you wish that we need to discover more apart from the vaccines and
Well,
antivirals?
they've been doing it now. What will happen? What are the effects of ACE ARB?
Mm,
Because we know that the ACE2 is the one that is being attacked.
yes.
When the virus touches to the body, mainly, of course, through the nose, through the lungs, and other parts, the heart, etc., other parts of the body. So, very important to know, and what's the effect of ACE, ARB, as they're the ones that are inhibiting the ACE2, etc., etc. But it's two-pronged. There are advantages and disadvantages. So, I'd like to know more about that. But studies have shown that you can give ACE and ARB to people with COVID, and it will not have any adverse effect. No, so it's still good to really keep on giving it. But the thing is now what's happening, of course, it was a small study only done in Europe about beta blocker. They found out of all the classes of medication, it seems as if the beta blocker would have the least, would have the most benefit. But small study, So beta blocker should be one of them to be considered. And then, of course, what are the effects of the medications for COVID?
COVID,
No.
yes.
At the same time, those with COVID, what medicines can be given that will help them, especially the ones with long COVID, defined as people with symptoms of COVID more than 30 days after.
Yeah.
So that will be important.
Yeah.
Of course, if we will depart a bit from that, I also like to know the effect of SGLT2 inhibitors in people with COVID, because it's a wonder drug. In fact, now what's being studied is really its effect on people with fatty liver, liver problem, which is good because fatty liver goes to fibrosis, cirrhosis, and then to cancer of the liver.
Okay. I don't know if this is related from the one that we mentioned a while ago. Do you see Asia or the Philippines as the center of clinical research?
Not
Maybe
to
not
see.
now or probably in the future.
No, it's now because right now, people from the developed countries
Mm.
know that there are differences between
Yes.
Asians and Caucasians. Like for example, the use of warfarin. We use less of warfarin to achieve the prothrombin time.
Mm.
And stroke, occurrence, different also. Many differences. So what they're doing now really is they have been involving Asians or representative countries from Asia in the studies that they do, international studies. And this is now the norm, which is really good because before, Asians were not involved much.
Yes.
But now they've seen the value of really involving the Asians because it may be good for Caucasians, but may not be applicable really in toto to Asians. But of course, they're all human beings, must be applicable. But we have differences in culture, in norms, in genes, etc., etc. Like for example, HDLT, high density lipoprotein.
Mm.
Why is it that we have a very high prevalence and incidence of low HDL? Now, we're finding out that the reason for that is because of genetics. There are genes, that would tell us that would make us prone to have that. Not only what was this believed before that countries that eat a lot of fries can have that, etc. But they're finding out, no, from these studies that they're really related more to the genes, to the DNA. Yeah.
So it's still the genes. Okay. Another question. When performing research, do you have a process for tracking your own progress now,
Yes,
or
well,
it's based on the
Of
CRO?
course, we track ourselves because we like to do a good research. We like to be able to be on time. We like to perform well
Mm.
and congratulated as a good performer.
Yes.
So yes, we do that, and I do it of course with the research assistant. Very good to have good experienced research assistants, and I have good ones. I have three well trained already in international studies. So they're clinic personnel, nurses as well as secretary. At the same time, do research on the side.
So you have your
So
own
that's
staff.
right, and not only that, and then we're sort of there is a meeting with the CRO
Yeah.
and trying to find out where we are. Of course, in between, we are told whether we're failing in succeeding or succeeding in submitting the reports, etc., on time, etc. A lot of submissions of the documents, whatever transpired in the clinic, their follow-ups, the vital signs, etc., and all the demographics. Right.
Dr. Dante, tell me more about your current research. Because we have
There's one. There's one which is exciting. It's called the PURE study, P-U-R-E. It involves about 5 continents, 22 countries. Philippines is involved.
Wow, that's
Actually, we have about 5,000 participants. And, well, my role really is as an adjudicator. Adjudicator is the one that determines about the outcomes, really, if they're really stated well. Very important. And this will look into each country. And in the Philippines, we have section, a group which represents the higher level, high revenue, society.
Side.
And then we have the rural and the urban.
Okay.
And looking into diet, etc. And what's important here is finding out that saturated fat, can really be detrimental to health. But very importantly, they found out that food with high glycemic index, which also correlates with glycemic load, like rice, white
Yes.
rice,
Which
like
we
white
love.
bread, which we love very much, they contribute to high glycemic index. And they found out that these foods really will contribute towards increase in cardiovascular problems, i.e., cardiovascular death, ischemic stroke, heart failure, and coronary disease. So very important to know. This was well known before, but when somebody presented this, everybody was, oh, it was poo-pooed. So, but then it's coming up again, and this study is showing that. This has been studied. This is a 12-year study,
Oh, that's
ongoing on the 9th year, and funded by our research arm in the government, and being used by the Department of Science and Technology and the Department of Health. And what's being found out is, very important in taking care of this will be to take care of alleviate poverty,
Yes.
to have available and affordable drugs. Very important, no? And of course, to be able to follow them up and provide avenues for them to be seen, or all our population to be seen. So that's one. Well, after having said that, it's still ongoing, and in fact, what we're trying to do now is establish. There are only 2 adjudicators in the country. So all international researches would need adjudicators.
Okay.
There are only 2, but now what's starting is, we're training young ones to take over us, as adjudicators. In fact, there will be a meeting in October in Turkey regarding this, about adjudicators and adjudicating researches.
Researchers.
Yeah, I just thought of another one, not ongoing, but a research which we did. One of the earlier ones we did in the Philippines when I arrived here. What was called ISIP. That's
ISIP.
yes, infarct survival in the Philippines, ISIP. And it was a nice study on myocardial infarction in the country, because at that time the ISIS was the one which is presented in the literature.
Okay.
It was really important because we talked about survival in after a heart attack. But surprisingly, probably serendipity or what, found out that the patients in some government hospitals expired, not because of heart attack, but because of infection, because of lack of. Anyway, not nice to say that, but
Okay.
that happened. I just thought of it. That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
so the pure doctor is most it's very important in lifestyle modification.
Oh, definitely, yes. And not only that, to open our eyes to the fact that we kept on talking about fatty food being bad, etc. But now, this has shown that all those four outcomes increase, with food with high glycemic index. So very important for us to find out which are the food with low or
Yes.
medium glycemic index. Vegetables, really, a lot of them have low, less than 50, but fruits also, almost all of them,
Fruits,
except
yes,
two.
of course.
Two fruits, watermelon and pineapple.
Really?
Yeah, but how much do you eat? You eat a small amount,
Yes.
So if the load is not much, even if it has a high glycemic index, it won't be much. But rice, gosh, we love rice and we eat a lot of rice in the Philippines.
And we fight for the price of rice.
Exactly. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so maybe that would be good also for the lay people to know later on when it's done.
Yes.
The doctor should educate their patients also.
With already two series televised together with the press regarding the result of the pure and what is the meaning, what will be the message. Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. Are there any clinical trials in your because there's a lot that you have done. Was there anything that it has to be stopped because it has no good result midway pre-evaluation?
Well, with the study on renin antagonist,
Okay.
we were all set up already in the Philippines. I can even name the title if you like me to mention it.
Okay.
It's Apollo. And
okay.
we were all set already. We were about to start, and then we were told, no, we have to stop because there was a study that just came out in people with diabetes in which there were problems. That was stopped. There was another one. I remember it was for hypertension. It was going on, and in fact, it was supposed to be presented in a European Society of Cardiology meeting. They already had the booth, to present that. But then it was canceled because of some studies that they found out. It's good because once studies show that there are problems that can happen, they stop it, which is good because even if it's a small occurrence, it's still a possibility to happen to the patients. So that's part of the ethical requirements that we follow.
That's right. Okay. So you have right now, doctor, you have 5, and you mentioned a while ago, tips is already
Just
published.
finished, yeah. And that was presented in the New England Journal or Lancet. And then before that was Hope 3. Hope 3 was it was a good study on an ACE inhibitor, and it was good because imagine 3 articles on Hope 3 were presented in the New England Journal of Medicine and published. That doesn't happen frequently. Imagine one study and three articles, all accepted by the New England, which is the best in the world, together, of
Yes.
course, with Lancet. No,
Oh, I wish I could do that.
I wish too, but there are some people in the country who are able to do that. But I really wish I can do that too, because to be accepted, it's really very, very tough to have your research accepted and printed and published in the New England Journal and the Lancet. Those are the top ones.
Yeah, okay. Just for our audience to know, Dr. Morales have very robust experience in clinical trials. He have a lot actually, and several publications also done. I cannot count it. So, okay, my last question is, with all this that you have done, what is your best asset that made you finish all this? And I think it's still going on. You still
Right.
have that passion.
Number one really is interest. Together with interest, let's make it even stronger, like what you mentioned, passion. You have to have passion and curiosity. Just all together. Interest, curiosity, and passion. And then commitment. And then integrity. That you're doing it, with integrity, and you're really following everything, you're reporting everything. Because very important to find out the outcomes, what will happen, etc., etc. So very important to follow this and be true to what you're finding and reporting this as they are. And of course, having in mind that very important that when you do research, there is no possible conflict of interest.
Yes.
No drug company, no pharma company, they may be supporting the medication to be used by donating the drug, but that's all. And even in the publication, we're the ones that determine how they will be written and to be published. So that's it. I think that will sort of summarize it. But very important, really, is to be introduced to the culture of research.
Yes.
You know,
It's a
and
different world, actually, right?
I'm very happy. I started well. I started right. When I had my fellowship in cardiology in Boston. But even before that, I was in Washington Hospital Center in Washington D.C. We were already doing some research, but not run by me or participated in by me personally. So that's it. Very, very important. But we really have to instill the fact that what we do, how we treat our patients in a very good way will really depend on evidences that were found. We cannot just rely on our own so-called expert opinion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dante Morales. Any key takeaway notes?
Well, first, I'm very happy that we have this talk, and for me to share my what. I've been in practice for about 5 decades. Believe it, I'm giving away my age, but I don't mind. Everybody ages. There are only two options. People tell me, Doc, I'm getting older. I tell them, you have a choice. What do you like to do? To get old or to die? Get old.
Get old.
So, in research, very important is to know the value of it. And we really have to be passionate about that and commit ourselves to that. And preserve our integrity and ethical values, etc. Of course, the core values that are needed when doing research, etc. To be able to do that and to know the importance of research in clinical practice. And not only that, also in training, in education, I've been involved in training hospitals. And this is very important, especially the new ones, the younger ones, they're going to challenge you, and you have to be ready, up on your toes, to answer them.
Because
Okay.
it's easy for them to access
That's
answers
right.
already.
Research, very important.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Morales. And
welcome.
it's an honor to be talking with you this morning. So, for everyone, okay, that was the science capsule for today. And yes, research is not just for the sake of complying, but also with my the type of work that I do. I also read research day in day out, so you have to appreciate it and have passion in doing it, because in the future, not only in the future, even in the current, it's still research that we really need even during the pandemic. So that's it for now. Thank you.